All right, everybody, it's 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, and you know what time it is. It's time for Q&A with Alan and Marshall, except Marshall's not with us today, so I have a special co-host. I'm Alan Howe with Easy Way Systems. And Ray, introduce yourself. This is Ray Greenwood.
I'm Ray Greenwood. I'm a consultant in the industry. I have a company called HPCI. It means Hazardous Print Consulting Inc. And yes, I do a little bit of EPA, a little bit of OSHA work. So, and it's printing, it's screen printing, it's hazardous.
Yeah, absolutely. Ray is also a member of the academy that Marshall and I are involved in. Marshall is actually at Print Hustlers in Chicago right now, and he will be giving us a full report next week. I know a lot of people are there, so it should be a good time. And I love industry events. And Ray, I know you do too.
Oh yeah,
events like
and by the way, we're the three of us are academy members. You two are pretty recent, so
yeah,
we all got the academy tattoo. You guys got to get the academy brand.
Yeah. Well, the brand hurts me, so yeah, exactly. So it's very much like a secret society. Someone asked me, is it like Skull and Bones Masons? I always say it's more like the Loyal Order of Water Buffaloes on the front stuff.
Yeah, pretty close.
There we go.
We have a grand poobah.
Exactly. No, good time on there. And so this show, we thought we're going to continue from what we did a few weeks ago. We had Andy McDougall on last minute, and he talked about functional printing and flat stock printing and talking about electronic printing, and how we were talking about the overlap. And man, we had a lot of good response on that, of people wanting to know. And this is where Ray actually lives in his circle there. As he said, he is a consultant for that electronic, that solar, that functional, that industrial printing. And him, myself, Richard Greaves, Andy, we're all talking about the overlap that's starting between the industries. And we're going to go a little bit deeper into that, because everybody's looking for new markets and what we can do. And this is going to be a way to do that. But you're going to have to do a couple things. You got to know a little bit more about it, but it might just be something you might be looking for and something to be interested in. And if not, I think it's just going to be a good view into what screen printing is. It's not all textile, and it's a lot that we're into every day.
It's wow, overlap. So most of the people in this particular audience are garment, t-shirts. Some of you probably do promotional products, glasses, cups, frisbees, keychains. That's on the first step of it, because it's partly, the overlap is partly about materials, ink systems.
And Ray, before you get into that, let's say hi to some people, and then we got to go to our sponsor, and then we'll get into our first topic, because I think you're about ready to jump into that.
I need to say a shout out to Josh Wiley at IGG here in Oklahoma City. And
Josh is actually right there.
Yep. Good man. He's going to factor into the edge of this at some point. He just doesn't know it yet.
We have Gosta from Sweden. Gosta, always good to see you. Josh, of course, from Oklahoma. Our good friend Peter Walsh from M&R. We were just talking about M&R and how they work into this whole area of screen printing.
Yes, sir.
Jim, good to see you as always from out east. Hurley Molds from up in Alberta, Canada.
Oh, yeah.
And my favorite girl in Kentucky, there's Heather from Replica Screen in Cape City, Kentucky. So thanks a lot. If you're watching, if you're listening, please go on and share this with people. This is how it works. This is all about Q&A. So, man, if you have questions, let us know. You have a comment, let us know, and we'll go from there. We have a few more people coming on. Cal King out of California. How you doing, Cal? Kevin.
Good morning.
From Sandusky, Ohio. How you doing, Kevin? I think you know this gentleman, Mr. Richard Greaves, the one and only.
Good morning.
And Hurley says he's from Saskatchewan. I want to say Alberta, but he's from Saskatchewan, so my bad. So I'm there. So thank you all for listening, and man, looking forward to this. I think this is going to be a fun show. But we also, I know you work with them a lot too, Ray. You work with GSG a lot of times. You've had some, and you'll talk about that later on. But why don't we got to do a little promo for them. We are so glad they sponsor us, and they actually work in the industrial field and doing a little bit more. So a little word from Graphic Solutions if you're not familiar with them. All right. Everybody was dancing during that music. We all danced.
Oh, I was.
I do. Of course. I do too. So we know everybody was. And, there's no cameras, but that's okay. Everybody danced. So wonderful. I know you work with GSG. You have some products that some opportunities you work with now. And
it's kind of funny. I can't help but work with GSG. They're great people. I don't care what anybody says. They're the largest dealer network in the country as far as
they're huge.
Their footprint is huge, probably from the west edge of Pennsylvania with some of their new acquisitions all the way through the edge of New Mexico, all the way up through Kansas, all the way down till you hit the water.
Into Milwaukee and Minnesota. Yeah.
Midwest. So, and in that footprint, I was chatting with Mark Granberry down in at the Fort Worth show. Just happened to go down there because I wanted to see him and see the ink, the chemical manufacturers to chat about industrial. Just in GSG.
And I know you had some time with my boss, with Alex.
Yep, had some time with Easyway, with Saudi, with Kiwo, with CCI, with Paul Knight. And it's interesting just to another quick throw out to GSG is just in that footprint. I don't know if they know all of this, but they know a lot of it. There's almost 5,000 industrial client customer potentials in there. Yep. So this is, you want to talk some overlap. Let's just talk about the products.
And let's explain, because remember, this is all textile based. Explain, Ray, when you and I and Richard and Marshall talk industrial, there's a lot that encompasses that. So give us some examples when we say industrial printing, what that is.
Let me throw a few
things. Here's what it's not. It's not textile kind of, and it's not signage or anything like that.
No, and now it does have graphics.
Yep.
But sometimes the graphics do more than just look good. In fact, that's the key. We'll get into that in a second. So this is a project I was doing a little bit of work with GSG from the side, helping out earlier this year. This is a company up in Arkansas that prints. Well, they make hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tools. One of the largest contractor tools on the continent. But so rulers, T-squares. Everybody goes, oh, we can print those. Yeah, that 6-point type in the logo on anodized aluminum. Yes, you can print it. No, it's not as simple as just throwing a screen on it. And it has to be the same every day. Oh, and they have a master ruler. It has to measure accurately. And the screens are 74 by 74 inches. Okay. But other than that, 300 mesh. It's NASDAR inks. Give you another example. This is an older one. This is just laying on my desk because I'm restoring a few of these. Up until the last 2 or 3 years, all of the instruments in your car are screen printed for the most part. This is called dead front printing. Yep. This one, you're seeing through it. So, but this has 6 layers of print on it. Most of these are printed before they're stamped into shape. The difficulty is this. I now have to reprint this when it's 3-dimensional shaped. I'm going to charge a lot for it. Other items. This is where we get into, it's not just a static graphic. This is when you'll hear the term functional printing, meaning
it does something.
It literally does something. It's not just for looks. And there is near functional, like when you're making an overlay that's backlit for the control panel of a washing machine.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it doesn't make the washing machine function, but it's not going to work without it. Okay,
Yep.
so that's like in the middle. This is a medical sensor. This is an older one. I can show you this because it's kind of obsolete, but so that brown stuff is a gel that's poured on by a robot, and some of these are printed. The little dot patterns and the traces, those are printed silver. On the back, automated snap machine, and this is a diabetic sensor. It wraps around the ankle. These were printed roll to roll, 10,000 feet at a time. Screen print, all screen print.
And most people would see a functional medical like that if you think if anybody's had an EKG or anything like that, those are the sensors. Those are the most common that people are familiar with.
And, you know, we'll start out with screen print, but don't ignore all the other prints because, you know, we heard in this industry in the years back, digital versus screen, digital versus screen. The functional industry doesn't care. They use every type of printing, pad printing, gravure, flexo, offset, screen print, robotic syringe pouring, all on the same production floor. And your stuff has to work with theirs. So that's where it gets into. I showed a piece. I don't know if this is going to show up. This is screen print. This is the front end of a solar cell. Those dots, I don't know if you can see them. This is a very, well, it's not obsolete. It's just the one I can show you.
Yeah.
That's not even conductive. That's what they call an etch resist. That is printed and it goes into an etching machine and then it gets plated and then printed again, then etched again and plated again. 16, 17 layers, $200 million worth of equipment, 5 screen print layers. There's a whole range of stuff. So, and again, shout out to Josh Wiley at IGG. Josh has one of the cleanest shops. He's right on the edge of the mindset. We'll talk about that in a few. Required to get into to go from textile to industrial. Here's a medical sensor. I want to show this last piece and then I'll keep showing things. See that simple little thing right there? This is not secret.
Little pattern.
Yeah. This is on a medical cloth. It's printed on a sportsman in a clean room. Dedicated sportsman with pallets from Action Engineering and a class 10,000 screen room. I think that's ISO 7 or 5. I can't remember. You've been in there.
This is the company in Arizona. So
in Arizona.
This company, everybody. So you think you can't do it? I knew they were doing something industrial on back. I was only in the front part with their textile, just shop like you guys have. And then in the back, they have that clean room. And I didn't realize that till later. So yeah, don't think this is something totally out of the blue. Just in Tucson, Arizona.
They're the poster child for this because I asked them how they got into it a few years back when I went in there. They said, well, we're just a textile printer. I visited them 25 years ago when I was with Stretch Devices, and I remembered them. And they had a new little room in the middle. I looked in there and he goes, this is what got us started. He said, we were the only screen printer in the area who knew anything about screen print. And they were approached by somebody from one of the large aircraft corporations. I think it starts with a B, maybe. Yeah. And said, we have a client that I believe it was British Air that had special panels they wanted printed in the first class. Like you see the walls, the texture on the walls and the airliners, that's screen printed up until just recently, most of it. So next thing you know, they have a little section with an M&R Renegade and some jig tables. They're printing polycarbonate panels that are vacuum formed that go in the first class of British Air 747, 777s. And out of the blue in that area, again, somebody was looking for somebody with some screen print industrial experience, and they ran into these guys at a trade show. And they came out and looked at it and said, hey, if we brought the machine, the Sportsman, and we converted this room and put in the HEPA filtration and did the stuff. Could you print when we needed it to, if we trained you in what we needed to do for quality control? And they said, yeah.
No
So
problem.
and just to tell you what that little dot pattern was you were seeing, there's no real registration. This is a cool device. Let's say you're in a hospital, you get an appendectomy, you got an open wound there with the tube running out of it. What they have are these patches, they're maybe a foot square. They have a medical gel around them. They slap that over the open hole, and then it has those dots are silver and zinc. And what they do is they wet it down with a saline solution. Saline is an electrolyte. It turns that into a battery and drives antimicrobial zinc into the wound for days at a time and keeps it clean. And I was like,
Incredible.
wow, that's the Wild West level of some of the crazy stuff that's out there. And it uses the same resolution, you know. There are some finer things like solar cells and things like that. Don't worry about that yet. That's in the future. But let me see if
we got a couple more people that have jumped on watching. Pete Babcock from Pete and Val over in Port Huron, and you guys are at Sunscreens in Holland, Michigan. Why are you hanging out with Chuck? That can't be good. So no, John from Indiana, good old Asadi Tech America, produces a lot of screens for automobile, medical, and small company located in Indiana. They're not that small, but they're good company. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Charles Juros from New Mexico. Hey guys, jumping in late. Jesse Ray, the Screen Master. So
thanks, Charles.
Ray uses the name Jesse is his first name when he's online and social media. So he's jumped in on some message boards and talked. And then in Minnesota, Tanya Dosher. How you doing, Tanya? So thanks.
Up in the Midwest. You guys getting snow yet?
Yeah, we haven't in Michigan yet. Tanya, have you guys gotten snow yet? And I don't think they even have in the Upper Peninsula.
We're supposed to get a little in Oklahoma City this weekend.
Oh, all right. You can.
Yeah, so it's coming at you, man. It's coming at you.
Yeah, great. That's what I'm looking forward. Not.
The last little piece, you see enough of these nameplates. All of this.
Right there.
It's like, this is stuff you can do. On the other hand, this is not dead simple. It's laying on my desk because it has a problem.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's kind of some of the overlap. What we do, screen print, is used across these industries.
Yeah.
How it's used and what you're printing, bearing in mind it's functional. Conductive inks, silver inks, they literally conduct electricity. In medical, we've got biological inks. Sometimes they're not even an ink. Some of the industrial guys, when you're printing on metals and plastics, you're going to come in there, or they're going to come to you and go, I need to print this, and we're having problems, or we print it ourselves. And, yeah, sure, man. And it turns out they go, we have to put this stuff onto this material. Where'd you get that ink? We make it. It's not an ink. It's a secret ingredient. It might be metal, might be plastic, it might be chemical that has to be suspended in something and put onto this in a precise pattern. We'll be back in a week.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff.
Very little. Yeah.
I guess that kind of drags us into almost the opportunities section.
I was just going to say, so what are the opportunities? Because when I first started thinking about this is when mine and yours friend, Gene Hash, and I were talking, who has been in this industry for a long time in this sector. He was looking at a autocoder. I was with a different company, and I took him to a place to see the same autocoder, but it was a textile shop. And he could not believe of how high-end textile has come. And that's when he first started talking to me about how close this overlap is. And I actually put him in touch with a guy in Port Clinton, Ohio area that can do that. And he was testing an ink because he keeps real good control of his tension. And that was Anthony Sharples. And he was testing an ink that wasn't even on the market. You knew about it. I'm not going to say the name of the company because it was there, but our friend Lynn Allison was there.
Oh,
and,
yes.
Yeah, and it was a learning curve for Anthony, who has won multiple awards for color process and simulated, but
I will say this much because I know that I can.
mhm.
At that point in time, I think that was 3, 4 years ago, something like
Yep,
that.
right
We
about
were
that.
talking
That's
about it a
correct.
little bit. You can say that that ink for EMS, that this is good because you'll
Mhm,
like this. Um, that ink that he was testing was EMS's. That's Engineered Material Systems
mhm.
up in Columbus, Ohio, Defiance, Ohio. Defiance,
Yep,
no, somewhere
not
up there.
Defiance, in Columbus, I thought.
Yeah, um,
Defiance is where,
it's in the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
who's the guy from Protection Device?
Anyway,
Uh,
um,
Albert Densmore lives in Defiance.
yeah, Dover Dinsmore, that's where I
Yeah.
first met him. The interesting thing was this ink is a conductive ink primarily made for putting on wearable
Mhm.
electronics and clothing. It stretches 300%. So you can print it, and this is a test they used to do at the trade shows. Just in the last couple of years, I printed a few of these. They'll print them on a sheet of red silicone, and they'll
Mhm.
stretch it. And they are having a contest to see who could break the circuit.
Yep.
EMS makes probably one of the best ones. They won an award for it a few years ago. DuPont makes some of those,
Yep.
but these are very good for bendable printed. Basically, when we're printing circuits, circuit traces, they're the lines you see. Like if you have an inkjet printer and you see the head zipping back and forth, and it has a film circuit with lines in it,
Mhm.
we print those. Those are screen printed,
Yep.
and so when you're looking at opportunities and people are going, okay, what could I do? Uh, First off, coming, and this is not just coming from textile t-shirt. This is coming from graphic screen as well. I would not immediately go, let's get into production. Where can
Right.
I make stuff? What you want to do is find out where you can do R&D and testing for companies. Well, like the companies we were just talking about, sometimes they get bogged down. Sometimes they're
Yep.
in the middle of production. They don't have any print heads open. They don't have time. Sometimes they're just stuck. They're like, hey, can you print my samples for me? And they have to be, they'll hand you a spec sheet, an engineering spec, and they go, they have to hit this number. Can
Mhm.
you cure this? Can you QC these? Do you have thickness gauges? Can you measure things? It's like there is a shortage in the industries across. There's a lot of people who get into manufacturing that manufacture things, and they don't have anybody, or they don't have on-site ability or on-site time to do their R&D and development.
And by R&D, we're talking very small runs compared to what the production runs would be.
50, 100, 500, sometimes at worst, maybe 1,000
Yeah.
pieces. But what they're going to do is, for instance, medical devices, they're going to come to you and go, can you handle this substrate? Can you cure this? How about, here's the ink, here's the image. Yeah, just print us 100. And then they'll
Mhm.
come back to you and go, those were great. Can you make them a little cleaner? Can you change this feature? Here's a new film.
Yeah.
And that's a business, because everybody fights tooth and nail for pennies on t-shirts, and we see it all the time. Hey man, I got a guy coming in, he wants to print 25 t-shirts, says he'll come
Mhm.
back with $1 million next month. Blow those people off. Don't do those. Make them do a minimum of 50. No, with people that do industrial and functional, sure, you want 10, I'll give you 10, and they're going to cost like it, and they don't care.
Yep.
They need what they need. They might need 500 pieces for a clinical trial next weekend. And once you start getting into that stage, like with medical
Mhm.
devices, there's some other stipulations. But
And
uh,
this is the thing also too, Ray, and correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I know very less about this than you do. A lot of times these medical people, they come from these monster companies way up top, and they have an idea, and then it goes to an engineer, and then it goes to that, then they go to their regular printer who goes, yeah, we could do that. We could do functional, we could do electronic. By the way, it's not going on a standard polycarbonate or anything else like they're used to printing, which is solid. It's on a fabric, and they
yep,
just have no idea what to do.
yep. And so
And
there are lots of fabrics coming out. There's lots of medical fabrics. I'll
And that's
tell
what we're
you,
talking. Sensor technology is kind of the thing in the future that is coming that everybody's working on.
Well, there's an organization called IPC, International Printed Circuit.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about trade associations; they have 30,000 member companies. And
Yep.
they hold all of the aerospace standards for circuit boards. So they've been in business. That's a week-long show in California that'll blow your mind.
Yep.
But they have print standards. They have print standard committees for wearable electronics and cloth electronics. How come you're not seeing any of these? There's a little bit in medical, there's military, there's other things that you're just
some in the sport field we're starting to see a little bit.
Sports field, you've seen like the skull cap for the batting practice and the glove with the sensors in it. And those are those are new surface sensor wearables that are broadcast. Those are functional electronics, by the way, functional printed devices. There's also a lot of the end I work in is what we call medical electrode ends, where EKG, EEG, which is heart analysis, defibrillator pads, these are called electrodes, things that actually stick on the body and might connect with wires or might transmit through a transmitter that's surface mounted to a pair of compression shorts. So that's where we're getting into the crossover of, well, there's going to be a skin contact. This division over here already makes that, but we need to make the connector unit, and we want to send this guy home. So we're going to put him in compression shorts or compression socks that have the printed on connector. And right now they're making these, but they're surface mounted. They're glued on. They're just getting to the point where they're starting to print these onto the stretchable fabric with the stretchable inks. So that's been going on for a couple of years. You're starting to see the toughest part in some of this crossover, why there's a shortage of R&D. So about 6 years ago, I worked directly for a medical device manufacturer up in Iowa as their process design manager. So I worked all across their processes, and they made all these electrodes, and they made specialty devices like some of the ones I showed you. They had clients, and a lot of these devices are designed by doctors that work in big hospital chains. They have an idea. Hey, I need this for surgery or this for that. So they get together and they play around with materials and conductives, and they make something, and they show up one day to a place like I worked up in Iowa. Well, there's Medtronic, Kateco, all these other big names. And they go, can you guys make these for us? And usually the problem with it is they came there way late in the design process and go, yeah, we'll have to change the materials around a little, use this, so we can get it into production. About 50% of these guys went too far already. They did not come to somebody to do their R&D to find out what is required of their materials and inks to actually make it through screen print production in mass. So I would say 70% of the medical device ideas get shelved and never see the light of day because they started clinical trials and things long before they talked to somebody who could actually print. There's a shortage of that. And so there's places you can, we were talking, we should tell them a little bit about the size of this industry.
Do it.
Had some numbers.
So, I wrote them down. It was staggering.
Yeah. So let's just talk the overall industrial market, everything from what we call white goods, washing machines, microwaves, all those control panels, the little push buttons, those are screen printed. Some of them printed, digitally printed, but the circuit behind it, the 2 or 3 layers of the circuit are usually screen printed. Some inside the hard circuit boards, those are green boards you see. Those have at least 2 layers of either screen print or stenciling that go into etching that circuit board. Some of them have printed silver, some of them were just etched copper. Anyway, that part of the industry globally is $839 billion. And the printed share of that is $16.7 billion. The functional end of the market, purely functional. We're not even talking appliances and things anymore.
That's $16.5 billion. That was just consumer electronics, washing machines, microwaves.
Functional, functional is $114 billion, and our industry share. Excuse me, I made a mistake there. The industrial market as a whole is $1.45 trillion.
Yeah, with a T.
With a T. And the appliances are 839 billion. Functional is 114 billion. 3D printing at this point, additive manufacturing is 7 billion. Medical is 66 billion.
Mm-hmm.
And 31 billion of that is printing.
Yep.
So printing, and some of this could be, you might end up, if you're doing something for somebody, because you work with cloth, adhesives, and curing, they might go, I don't really need anything printed right now, but do you know anything about doming equipment? Yeah, we know people who sell doming equipment. We make keychains, right? Yeah, well, that's called syringe pouring in an XY robot. And guess what? A lot of medical devices are made that way, especially with hydrogel. And so that's, continuing on the opportunities, that's the opportunity that's out there. And looking at, just trying to see if I was missing anything.
A lot of money in growing, and even things that we don't realize are screen printed. Is most people don't, when I tell them that the dashboards of their cars, the automotive, the printed circuit boards, your touch panels, things like that. And even you buy even the cheapest washing machine, it comes with that protective blue wrapping on top of the thing you pull on. Most people do not realize that it's all screen printed as a liquid and it dries that way.
Yeah.
And that is incredible when you first see it.
Another, and I really, I can't talk about the process much because I'm kind of coming at it from the side. I'm helping out one of the GSG people for a different portion of it. Kilo's involved for some of their products. But if you ever use one of those really sharp microplanes in your kitchen, that's manufactured by screen printing. So
how's that done?
The teeth pattern, and I have one. I can't show it.
That's all right.
Yeah. But basically, everybody knows what we're talking about. It's a really sharp, not the cheap cheese graters you buy at Wally World.
Right.
We're talking the ones you might buy at
a specialty kitchen
store.
Yeah.
They're the kind you don't want to get your fingers around, because if you slide off the end of it, you've grated your finger. So they're razor sharp. I'm not going to say
you're using for nutmeg or something.
Yeah, and there's a brand name, and I'm not going to say it.
No, that's okay.
But anyway, basically, that's stainless steel, and it's printed with what's called an etch resist, green printed. It's precise printing. It looks a lot like a photo emulsion, and has some similar properties. And you print it on there, prints very sharp. We're talking print tolerances of about 1.5 to 2 thousandths of an inch. And then they take this and put it into a heated bath of some very nasty acids, and it literally eats the stainless steel anywhere there is no print, no ink. And so when it's done, it comes out, and there's some other processes. I'm sure there's some laser work, punching, drilling, bending, whatever. But what they end up with is a razor sharp grater made strictly by screen printing. So it's screen printing and etching. That's a huge part of the other industry as well. That solar cell, that's all etched. That's all etched, then plate, more ink, literally plating metals just like chrome plating, but they'll plate copper, they'll plate zinc, they'll plate tungsten, and each one has a different pattern in it. And they etch it. And when it comes out, you plug wires into it and it works. So
we know there's money to be made. And I know when Anthony was doing the stuff for EMS, or like I said, Gene Hash, who we've mentioned his name, was the one leading that charge. And he finally told Anthony, he goes, one of the problems you're having is you're not charging enough, because these people have gobs and bucket loads of money. And he gave him the number, and he goes, there's no way I can charge that much. He goes, do it. It's just, you do not think. It is just gobs of money that these people, these engineer firms have, and they're budgeted. And if they don't use the money, they're not going to get it again.
So this is an older ink. It's for test ink. This is EMS.
Yep.
This is that ink we're talking about. This
And the
is
nice thing, Anthony didn't have to buy that. They gave it to him.
right. And I have to give this back to EMS, even though it's expired, because this has, I won't even say it has a percentage of pure silver in it, a high percentage.
Right.
This is 1 kilo. So it's about that full from the factory. So it's a little over a pint. That's about $1,400.
We don't waste ink like that.
Yeah, we don't waste ink like that. And so that kind of brings it into the next level.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about a couple of things to start out. I'll finish that thought. When you're printing electronics, for instance, you're printing conductives, they need to know exactly how deep the wet ink and the dry ink is, because you're printing a wire. So what gauge of wire is that? Well, how thick is the dried ink? How wide is the circuit trace? How much current or voltage can it carry? So when they give you a specification and go, yeah, I need 7 to 9 microns dry, and you've got to control the porosity of it, the texture of it, the adhesion of it, and it's got to be dried perfectly, because if it's dried wrong, it won't conduct electricity. And so there's things. So there's,
it sounds difficult, but it's done every day.
yes.
And Ray, they do this by things, whether we're on a message board or at a seminar. And I love it because, Ray, like you said, you talked about your time at Stretch Devices, which is Newman Roller. You've worked for print companies, you worked for a chemical company. So you've been in textile, you know textile very well. And we still talk about the same things no matter what industries. It is controlling your process and a lot of the same things. So we've talked about overlap opportunities and what to do. Should you say, hey, I could do 500 pieces and there's good profit in it? Wow, this could be a market that just sets you completely outside of the textile market. What do you have to do to prepare yourself to maybe do that? Besides, one, don't try to get into this yourself. Call Ray, call people that know, and we'll give you his information later. But yeah, because he will go in and say, here's what you need to do. You're not ready yet, but you could be. Here are the things you need to do. So let's go next level.
So people ask this all the time. I get calls about this all the time, like weekly. And they're like, hey, man, how can I get into that? What are you doing right now? What do you have? What do you use? Okay. And the first thing I tell them is, number one, the first thing they ask is, what's it going to cost me? What are you ready to buy equipment today? You ready to invest? Stop that. No. First thing I tell everybody, and this drives certain people nuts because I am an equipment horse. I carry a lot of instruments. And I tell them, first things first, what do you own that you measure with? Well, we have a tension meter. Oh, that's good. Yes, you must have a tension meter. I don't care whose screens you use.
Hold on. And these tension meters, they have to come out of the box. They can't be on a shelf with dust on them.
Yes, and they need to be calibrated on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
You know, at least, hey, and there's quickie rules for that. It's like when you keep resetting it every week and the zero gets around to like around, literally, I'm going to be serious here. When it gets around to right around 8 o'clock, like on our Noon EST meter, it's time to get recalibrated. Yeah. If it's between 6, 7, 8, when it gets above 8, get it recalibrated. Even though it's still zeroing, it's going to be inaccurate in some range. So just spend the money, get it done. The gist of it is I tell people, no matter what, whether you just stay with what you're doing right now or you start doing something else. Greg Kitson, hello, sir. You need to buy some measuring tools.
Yep.
You can buy some of them used. You can buy some of them new, but you need to buy, I would say invest $3,000. You can get it done for cheaper, but I'm telling you somewhere around $3,000 because you want to look at your screens. You want to measure what you print and you want to know what your tolerance ranges are and what your level of control is. You want to find out what you can do. And it's like, do you have anything in your shop that can print that has a vacuum bed? Or maybe you want to call Action Engineering or M&R and order a single vacuum pallet so you have something to work with, even on a Sportsman or anything else. but find out what you can print. You may already have some good experience printing plastics, solvents, UV inks on graphics and promotional products, but you want to find out what your capability is, and then write all that down. And then we can give you suggestions. I would say don't spend a lot of money, but go to a couple of shows. Go to a medical device show, go to something like an IPC show, which some people would go, oh, that's way out of their league. No, you're going to see what they make.
Yep.
You're going to see what kind of clients there are. MD&M, for instance, is medical device and manufacturing. You get to see a range of everything from material and substrates to medical device manufacturers to the people who design them to the clients who buy them, all at this show. There are little symposiums for industrial. There's appliance manufacturing. There's automotive sensors. There's sensor shows. It was just a couple of weeks ago. And basically, go there for a day and walk the show floor. Maybe, hopefully, if they have a mixer or something, go there. And I'd say hit a couple of shows first, get an idea, then spend some time researching and go, in a perfect world, if I wanted to do R&D, sample runs, and things where, and this is important, and I'll finish this thought in a second, you do not want who you're printing for to be involved in your process right now yet. You want to sell them a result, not a process, because your shop may not be fully clean enough yet. Your processes may not be fully documented yet. You may not have as much control as you want, but you can produce the product. Maybe you have 10% scrap. Maybe it didn't all work out. You're learning. They don't need to see that. You only need to sell. I needed 500 pieces. Here's 505. You got your 1% overage. I guarantee, because I checked all of these, here's your certificate of compliance that it met all the specs. Hey, can we see your shop? No, it's not what it's the process isn't your business. We smoke cigarettes and print naked. What do you need to know for it? I'm just joking, but the thing of it is and a lot of these shops are very aware. A lot of the engineering based facilities are aware of this. They're like, listen, for now, we just need the prototypes and the samples. We need to see if this works. We need to see what we need to change, and we'll come back at you and we'll get some more. That's a business, but you need to figure out what you can print and what your tolerance is. And, we didn't talk much about tolerances.
Well, let's talk real quick. Let's go over the tools that they would need to start with.
Sure.
I know tension meter. I'm thinking in the screen room, thickness gauge. Of course, everybody needs an exposure calculator.
That's like the very, very basic ones that you, in my opinion, shouldn't even be doing any kind of work with is tension meter, of course, exposure calculator. You should have a loop. You should get some viewing loops, and I've got 2 or 3 microscopes. You can get them for cheap. You can get them. You should spend more, but for write off, you could spend $60 and get one it's good enough for now. And those are the basics. Right off the bat, thickness gauge. There's a range out there. This is dry film thickness gauge. You're going to use it for measuring your screens. This is why we'll talk about it if somebody wants to know at some point. There are better thickness gauges out there because we also use them for measuring the thickness of the substrate. We're measuring polyester, polycarbonate, sometimes vinyl, sometimes you name it, PVC, and the better ones we can also measure cured printed ink down to the micron accurately. So we need to know that. And the next stage up, wet thickness gauges.
What do you think? John says get a micrometer. Now, John, correct me if I'm wrong. When we talked, you actually worked at a Saudi Tech, is how you know this, because John has a textile shop in Richmond, Indiana.
Well, micrometers help. And when we're talking about a micrometer, that helps for measuring stock, but the tolerance is too wide, because
Okay.
even the best, and there's a Mitutoyo sitting on a stand back there. There's a 1/10,000th, and that's a 1/10,000th is 2.54 microns, and that's a mechanical gauge. The new electronic ones, they've got some that go down to a micron, but keeping them calibrated and working, and that's a $3,500 gauge.
So probably to start off with, probably not something right away if you're looking.
Yeah, you're well, even if you talk to Saudi and Kiwo, the older Saudi electronic thickness gauges that are good to plus or minus a micron, those are excellent for screen work. They're bulletproof. Then you've got the Positector 6000 series and the new Positectors that Kiwo sells.
Yeah.
Those are excellent as well, but they're problematic in certain measuring. And I love the gauges. But every gauge has some issues.
Yeah. Any of the Kiwo ones, of course,
our
sponsor is a big Kiwo dealer.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And their newest range of gauges they've had for the last couple of years are far better than their older ones. And it's not because the gauges weren't quality. They're finally just starting to gear them for our industry, because they actually came out of the paint and coatings industry.
Right.
But there's some other ones out there that are really good. You're going to be looking at a gauge like that's going to cost you between $1,200 and $1,800. But it's worth every penny, because that's the one you'll use on your screens. You'll use it on dried inks. You'll use it on substrates.
Yep, we're talking a thickness gauge. Awesome.
Yeah, thickness gauge. And then when you get into other things, next stage is up. Like, I think this is mine. There's wet thickness gauges like this. Let me get that out there.
Right there. Yep.
This is a cool little gauge. They make a few of those. That's about $600, and you can buy them used. But it's hard to explain. Let me see. You see the little dials on it? When you roll this through the ink, one of those is a spiral machined to within 1 micron. And as it rolls through the ink, it stops. Hey, Lewis. It stops picking up ink in an exact micron increment. And there are times when you nothing like seeing a new employee drop a brand new first
I had to throw things like that.
So that was a 1-day employee. I'm just kidding. No.
Yeah, John fired him that day, had him killed.
Further on up, this comes into it. It gets into it. So you're going to get into things that you start getting into other substrates, like even when you're printing on flat stock that's polyester, you're going to find days where it's like, oh man, the ink won't stick. Oh man, the ink won't cure. I don't know if you can hear the funky hum in the background. I've got a weather station back here I'm testing that's in the back. I've got, you need to keep control of your environment, humidity, things like this.
Things we talk about in screen making all the time.
And other things.
All about controlling SOPs.
This is an RZ meter. We hear the term all the time. Not that many people care about it.
Yep.
But in our end of the industry, we care about it a lot, because it matters. It's going to control what resolution you're carrying, what you can hold. And a lot of people,
for everybody that's not sure, RZ is the term of measurement for how smooth your stencil is.
Yeah, there's actually many different categories: RA, RZ, RP, RT, RV, and then there's even more advanced ones. But the one we care about,
I only knew about RZ in our industry.
Yeah, one RZ is what most closely matches the scale of our screen, our screens. But yeah, so you're going to have to get into some measuring tools. And here's the thing: even if you ended up not getting into any industrial for a while, maybe you just ended up getting into more graphic, into metal and glass and plastic. These are capital expenditures. You can write them off.
Yep.
And you will use them every day. If you want to, you can use these to improve your t-shirt business as well.
Absolutely.
Guarantee you, to throw names out there, Lon Winters has a thickness gauge and uses it all the time, so there's lots of that's the kind of beginning is you got to get some tools, you got to get some bits and pieces, you got to figure out what you can do, what your capabilities are, and then stop right there. Don't run out and buy anything else. You want to look at what you can do And then sometimes you can look at things and go, I got a sharp machine already. It holds pretty tight tolerance. What accessories could I add to it? Like a vacuum palette, like a flock machine. And people are like, you'd use flocking in industrial? Oh man. I wish I had one of these to show you. Years and years ago, this company is out of business now. This is back in the late 90s. We had a project at STM Graphics in Dallas where every 6 months, a large manufacturer who I can't say, who made gauges for aircraft and submarines, would come in with the films and the blueprints and go, I need 50 of these or 100 of these. And they were printed with a very special dust called invisible orange mixed into a white ink. And what it was if you're in an airplane and certain submarines and military aircraft, the lighting on the gauges is black lighting. So all of the numbers glow orange under black lighting. And the issue is when all the power goes away and the black light goes off, they will still stay charged, emitting their own light for up to 2 minutes. So if you're in an airplane taking off at night and all power goes out, you still have 2 minutes by the gauges where the numbers appear. That was some cool stuff. That was flocking. So we printed the adhesive and we used a flocking screen over the top. I won't even tell you what we charge for each one of those gauge phases because your tax dollars paid for them.
Yeah, nice. So let's get back onto the opportunities on the next level. I love that what you said about all these tools are something that everybody should be using in their screen room and in their shop anyways, whether you're just printing textile or looking to get into there. You want to also do that. Now, there are some, I know you mentioned Lon Winters. I know Greg Kitson has tension meters and stuff on there. I know Josh Wiley does. And Greg is all about SOPs and stuff of doing that. So let's talk about going to that next level. I know you've talked to Josh about this a little bit, if you're going to dime him out.
Josh, all of his people make screens by a method. They reclaim screens by a method. They coat screens by a method. They expose screens by a method. And these methods are written down. Have you, I don't know how much have you heard about like what ISO is, ISO-based companies, and QS-based. Automotive is QS and ISO, and there's aerospace. Coding. Yep. And
steel mesh. He's talking about a wire mesh.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about just a little bit. We don't have much time left, but anyway, what ends up happening is, for instance, automotive. 8 minutes. You can't print for automotive or aerospace unless you can meet their quality control standards. So there's certain markets that means you have to have experience. You have to be certified in the quality control in ISO. So there's certain markets they won't let you do production for, but you can do R&D and sampling for. But most of these companies are engineers. They have engineers, product engineers, design engineers, electrical engineers. Everything is done by a lot of times ISO method. So everything you print, how you mix your ink, what its temperature is, every detail in the recipe of your screen, all of this needs to be logged. You need to keep logs, and you need to your processes need to be written down. You need to follow them. Okay, so we drop over to medical device. You also have CFR's Code of Federal Regulations. There's federal law that governs what you do. If you make defibrillator pads and somebody drops dead because it didn't work on the table, they will show up at your door, and they're going to come to your door every year and audit your company either way. And that means they're going to look at the serial number and go, what day were these pads made, and give me the entire employee list of where they signed into the machine and who was working on what, who was printing. And I need to see their drug testing information, and I need to see all of this, and I need to see the material sheets, and I need to see the certificate of compliance from the screen room that made the screens to make sure they hit all the numbers. They're serious about it. Aircraft parts, train parts, you're printing things. Maytag may not care as much as they used to.
I know
They're
what
not going to come after you, but it's so written process. It's a frame of mind, and that's one thing the guys at IGG, Josh Wiley, and other shops like him, Greg Kitson. It's a frame of mind about keeping track. We mentioned clean room, like the one out in Tucson. Clean rooms are expensive. Clean room, everybody goes, oh my God, how am I going to keep we got to have it in a clean room. We're doing this. Well, it wasn't a very high level clean room, but but the HEPA filtration is expensive, and tacky mats and bunny suits and all that. No. You can make a clean space. You can take a small machine or one head of it and build a box around it with a HEPA filter you bought at Costco. And I was in a plant 2 years ago in China for a company whose name rhymes with Snapple. I really, all I can say.
Yeah.
But they were disturbed because the Chinese plants weren't clean enough. But when I went through there, they had mastered clean spaces. You have this filthy plant with immaculate coverings that went all the way around the machine. They had their own air supply. You can make these. This is the level of stuff you can do. Quick thing on tolerances. We got about four.
And let's go back. Richard had a great one, and I've heard this before. The difference between basic and advanced screen making is the tools, and this comes from Jeff McHugh's seminars in the 90s. And Jeff McHugh, another Academy guy, and it's not just about the tools; it's about using the tools. That's the difference between a basic and advanced.
That's how you use. I've had one of the things I have to write a lot is the written processes for using thickness gauges, digital thickness gauges, because most people, Mark, I know DOD audits are horrible. Yeah. So are CFRs. Federal regulations, EPA, FDA. FDA is typically the ones we deal with in medical device. Tolerance wise, in graphic print, if you're printing 85 line process, you can live with a plus or minus thousandths to a thousandth and a half of print tolerance registration, depending on what minimum and maximum, highlight and shadow dot you use. Correct. Okay, so let's go down to 4-color process on t-shirts. Typically between 3 and 5 thousandths of an inch, depending on, again, what dot size. I don't know if everybody saw Josh Wiley's print from a couple of weeks ago on here, that really fine, the napkin looking print. He was probably holding around 3 thousandths on that. When you get down into membrane switch, which is some of those flexible circuits I showed, generally, depending on the trace width, you're looking at 1,000th to 1 thousandth and a half. There was a piece I was going to show, but I don't have it close by. When you're dealing with solar and surface mount for like the circuit boards inside of watches, you're dealing with about 0.5 thousandth to 1 thousandth of an inch with plus or minus tolerances of 5 to 12 microns. So 5 microns is common down in surface mount and solar as a plus or minus 5 microns. I don't know if I have this close by. We'll see. Yes. This is a keyboard circuit.
Nice.
This is 7 layers of screen print, 15 thousandths of an inch. Those are 10 to 15 point lines. We'll call it that. It's not really points, but 10 to 15 mil lines. Tolerances were plus or minus 5 microns on each layer. And so you might end up at some point, you could do prototyping for that. You don't want to get into the production of that, because then you'll have to hire slaves, underage children, and whatever. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. I think, most people, most shops, if you have any control at all, have any tools at all, could be, with some training, could be able to do prototyping. Do you
yes that? And your screens will be totally different. And they'll have to be controlled more, but that's why you're buying
and that's where we're talking about a mindset.
Yeah,
And
it's a
that
mindset.
mindset will not just help you in getting into this field, but it will make you, like I have said it in seminar, when you have proper tension on your screens and controlled on it, you're going to have faster print speeds, better lay down, better opacity of your textile screen, of your textile inks with less ink and faster print speeds. And that all equals profit. Done.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah. So I think the opportunity's there. And that's why we had Ray come on. And we have only a couple minutes left, Ray. So I don't want to cut you short. So go ahead. I'm going to give you the floor, and then we're going to tell people how to get in touch with you.
I've been trying to get people out of the box from both
Yeah.
ends of the industry. I've been trying to get textile people and graphic people to go look at other shows, go look at other markets, how things are made, look around you, figure out what's printed. If it has an image or a number on it, it's printed somehow.
Yep.
Okay. And I'm not trying to get anybody out of screen print. I'm trying to add to it. Look at pad print.
Absolutely.
Look at anything. But the real key is look at devices and look at how they're made. I was just telling Alan earlier, I just opened a container of beans the other day, and I wanted to save the container, and I'm really familiar with this stuff, but it's like, oh, wow, this is in mold. It's in mold labeling. It's molded into it. Wow.
Yep.
No wonder the damn beans were $10 a bucket. But, yeah, spend some time out there and look around and look at what you can add to what you already do.
Yep.
And don't just think textile, but don't drop that out of your mind. One of the biggest things coming for those who print textiles, and it's huge, but it's just really starting to move, is non-wovens. There are more types of non-woven cloth made than regular cloth. More materials, more hybrids. Some of them are conductive. Some of them are anti-static. Some of them are filtration. And more people are starting to print on these because that cloth can be made more uniformly and at a higher speed and in larger quantities than regular cloth. And it doesn't use, it's sustainable. It's more sustainable. So
I think, yeah, that's great. There's so much opportunity. So if you think you have the chops and you think you want to change your mindset, I think the mindset needs to be changed, whether you want to get into this side of the printing industry or not. But the mindset needs to be there. And I love that term. You've got to have a mindset, a way of thinking. And that's what a few of them do on there. And I'm glad Josh, like I met him earlier this year. And man, so cool. When I heard you were in the shop talking about it, and Mark Soldonic, you know all about it. And so you guys are not that far away from doing it. And these places are all over the place. You will pass by them. They don't say screen printing. They don't consider themselves printers. It's just part of their manufacturing.
Right.
Is what they do. So they're
it's
not
what we call
say,
a lot of it is in-house, what we call OEM, original equipment manufacturers. It's like it's one process in 100 they have under the roof. In fact, there's 3 within a mile of me. They're light manufacturing, and some of those big tip-up warehouses you drive by miles of. There's businesses. Sometimes you see a sign, you have no idea what they do.
Absolutely. And I know even here in Michigan, and I'm going to put that. Josh says everything starts with the screen room. Absolutely,
absolutely.
Right. In small towns in Millington, Michigan, and Frankenmuth, and Fort Wayne, Indiana, there are people that are doing functional and industrial products. And so I hope everybody would take a look and think about, because thinking outside of the box, we've all had to do that the last 2 years. And so you're not that far away. Ray, can they get a hold of you if they have questions?
Yes, absolutely.
His email address. So contact Ray.
To get a hold of me. I will, if you get a hold of me, I'll also send you my LinkedIn link. I should have given you that as well.
That's
my
okay.
LinkedIn link, because that way you can get a kind of a look at my resume on there as well, and the kind of companies I work with. And I'll work with anybody that I can. Like I said, the textile guys, there's 20,000 of you guys out there, and huge range of capability. There needs to be some crossover from that, because the graphic, I would say right now, the textile guys are more widespread in advancements than the graphic guys are. The graphic guys are busy doing what they do with the ink sets they use and the plastics and metal they use. Not putting anybody down, just saying the textile guys are a little hungrier and willing to try anything.
Yep. When I, it's funny, Ray, when I left from tech support screen printing supply and went to work for the previous company I worked for, there was a lot more into that functional back in the industrial realm. And I'd been out of it for about 10 years. And Gene Hash and I said, Gene, what am I missing? What has increased that I don't know about? He goes, truthfully, Alan, nothing has changed in 20 years. So textile people, as Andy McDougall calls us, the textilians, we're way ahead. We're moving forward, and great job, guys. But this is something you want to take a look at this. Contact Ray. See what you have to do. See what you start with. Some of you are right there. Josh, you're right there. John, you know this. It might be just another market, and we're all looking for good markets on there. So we went a little bit over, but Ray, I really appreciate you.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, GSG. As always, make sure you go to gogsg.com. Check them out. Mr. Soldonic, man, he had some great videos this week. I was watching on there. So, everybody on the whole ink crisis, you want how to save ink, go check his video out. But hopefully, thank you, John. Insightful. Thank you very much, everybody. This is awesome. And Ray, stay on there. Everybody have a great weekend. Make sure you share this, and we'll talk to y'all later.
See you guys.